Hello and welcome to the event When People Move, Policies Should Too. We are coming to you live from the Nordregio studio. Nordregio is a regional research development institute based in Stockholm. Today we're going to talk about migration and regional attractiveness, why some people move away from their regions and what it would take to get them back. Premium EU is the project that we are hosting this event today. It's a project that tackles population decline through development and migration research, as well as gathering local attraction and retention policy examples from most regions in Europe. So today we're going to show you a digital tool that makes the data and policies relevant and usable. One thing is gathering the attraction and retention policies. Another thing is actually compiling them and making them useful to other regions. Then we're going to discuss with the people working with this kind of theme in their daily life. These are the panelists that we have here today. I'll give a quick introduction to Sarah, who is the chat moderator.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I will be moderating the chat today. So please feel free to drop all your questions and we will try to pick them up throughout this webinar. We wanted to kick off by asking you all, also to get the chat going a little bit, where you are tuning in from today. So please let us know what region you're from, what country you're from. We would love to know. We would also love to, here, if you have any policy suggestions on this topic and things like this. But I will turn back to AK and let you continue there.
Thanks very much, Sarah. So let's kick it off by going behind the scenes first of this dashboard and explaining a little bit about how and why we built this migration and regional development policy dashboard before the live demo. And to do this, we have Peter Meister-Broekema from Hanze University of Applied Sciences. Peter is an associate professor who specializes in co-creation, social innovation, spatial sciences, history, philosophy, and religious studies. He is the policy specialist in the Premium EU team who led our policy labs and built an AI language learning model to collect hundreds of relevant policies. And he's going to tell you a bit more about that, how that works now. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much for this introduction, Anne Katrine. I'm just waiting briefly for the presentation to pop up. Ah, there it is. Hopefully, not seeing anything yet. Okay, cool. See if it works. Really honored to be here. I was already joking in the beginning before we started and the people were getting in that we will remember this this event also because of the fire alarm, but let's also hope we remember it for another reason as well. Ah, there it is. So first go back. So my presentation, like Anne Katrine was already saying, is focusing on the background of the policy, the Resilient Regions Policy Dashboard. So I will say a few words about how we developed it and why we developed this. Anne Katrine was already mentioning it, who I am. So briefly, ABCD. I'm an associate professor, impact of demographic changes, broad prosperity, background kind of broad. Anne Katrine also touched upon it. I was co-initiator of this Premium EU project, which we are going to talk about today, together with Professor Wissen. It's been 4 years ago since we were in all kinds of discussions with potential partners and drafting the proposal. So it's an amazing time, and it's amazing to see where we come from and where we are now. And I was the lead in developing the web scraper and policy analysis tool. So I will say a few words about that. Sometimes, and I think I've seen a lot of familiar faces, familiar names. Also really great to see where people are coming from. I've shown this the last 2 times as well. For us, the main problem is the population decline, which is going to happen a lot. This is based on the Guardian article, I think the beginning of last year, which is basically showing that the whole of Europe will, diminish in growth. So a lot of people will move away, people become older, etc. You only see 2 green spots which are growing. And that's the image without migration. But if we take migration into account, so migration coming from different parts of the world, different parts of Europe, different parts of the whole world, then you see a more nuanced image. So you see that it is possible to grow, it is possible to prosper, and it is possible to come out of that population crisis. So The EU project, Premium EU, most of you already are aware of this, but is focusing on the intersection between regional development. So how can we remain prosperous but also happy? And on the other side, the migration, or as we call them, mobilities. Because for us, migration is not people coming from other countries, but it's also about mobilities between countries and between regions. And for us, it's really important that we look at the impact of those mobilities and the migration on regions, also on the prosperity of that regions. And what we try to find out is what kind of policies could be implemented in other parts of Europe. So what kind of policy constellations can we find that could actually help other regions? That was the basic question from the start. So we use, I said this before, we used a quite broad definition of regional development. So for us, it's not only about the economic prosperity, but it's also on well-being, etc. We'll say a few words about that later on. And what we're also interested in is not specific policies. So we will never say, okay, this is a perfect policy in somewhere in Latvia. You could also use it in a different country, but for us it's about those sets of intertwining policies, and that makes it more complex but also more interesting and also more valuable, we believe. So to do this, we came up with a regional development index. So like I said before, not focusing on economic prosperity only, but also focusing on social dimension and also something we call the living environment dimension. Well, it was a huge struggle to find indicators to basically load these type of dimensions, but we came up with a lot of indicators on these different dimensions, and we were able to compare the whole of Europe together. Well, Becky will show this later, but this is a snapshot of the regional development, as we call R. So that's the broader economic development all over Europe. And you can see, well, the red ones are more developed in that way, and the other colors, show different levels of development. And this is the general snapshot based on all the indicators. But if you zoom in and use the filters, you can also see how one region is doing differently from the other region. We'll talk about that later. I said this also briefly, what we intend to do is not focusing on policies, but we will focus on that policy mix. So what are the ingredients of a perfect policy mix to make a region more not only prosperous but also more higher on the well-being? So we try to find out which combinations of policies you should have, for example, on culture, but also on economics, to make the ideal region or to help regions from one phase into the other. So how do we do this? Well, so we thought let's do a different approach. So we have we had the regional development, the R I was just talking about. We had the idea, well, policies shape those regions, and not completely, of course, but policies have a lot of effect on the well-being of those regions. But we also felt like that one policy, or focusing on qualitatively on one policy, wasn't enough, because you end up having discussions with people about the effectiveness of a policy, but you do not entirely know what the effect of that policy is, because it's just really small. So we had the idea of coming up with the policy snapshots. So giving an overview of all the policies in a specific region or municipality, and then see how they were interconnected and how they relate to the regional development. And to do this, well, we had the idea of coming up with basically an application, that has 3 elements. So the first one is the PDF web scraper, so downloading all the policy related documents from a website. Then we have the local machine learned model. And it's amazing. We started with this, let's say, 2 years ago. And if you see what is possible now with all the AI developments going on, it's been moving rapidly in a great direction for this type of research. So we put the downloaded PDFs in, and then we analyze them and summarize those policies so they could actually be used for other regions and policymakers as well. Now, to show you briefly, PDF web scraper. So we developed this in Python. So it basically, you put in a web address, you put in the NUTS region, and then it starts downloading. And just to give you an idea, sometimes it's been downloading for 44 hours and it comes up with more than 20,000 documents. But there are also instances where it's only running for 4 hours and you find 5,000 or etc. So it's really depending on the website, but you get a lot of results with this. So then we developed the local machine learned model. So we trained this model based on literature on what a policy is. Well, I have a definition here. You can read it out loud if you want. So what is a policy? And then we collected thousands of policies and manually checked them and then use that to train that model. So that model is now able to understand which is a policy or not. The problem is with policies is that it's sometimes really difficult to distinguish between policies and non-policies, because sometimes reports can be seen as policies because there's an analysis in it and a future outline, and sometimes not. And this is really difficult also for the machine learned model. But to be fair, it would also be difficult if you have 10 people together and defining what is a policy or not. It's always debatable. So we made an application for this as well. So we basically put in a lot of policies, train the model, then the model extracts all the perfect policies from it and then automatically summarizes it, puts some tags on it, and also shows in which NUTS region it's located. And we use that to be able to compare that region with other regions. And Becky will say a few words about that later on. But it's basically putting in a lot of policies and then see how regions are shaped using the policies, and we can compare it to other regions as well. Well, it's difficult, so a lot of challenges as well. Sometimes we notice that the model is I don't know, seeing non-policies as policies, and then really rearranges them and reshapes them into policy. So you feel like, oh, this is a policy, but actually it's a non-policy, and this is really difficult to get out of it. So we've been using a lot of time and training time to make this model more predictive and better, because we really want to have an accuracy which is good enough, because otherwise you don't have enough policies to share with policymakers. So that's really difficult. Well, I was just saying this, so it's really necessary to train this a lot and to make it even better, and we're working on that as we speak. And it's nearly there, so I think the accuracy rate has gone up enormously, but it's always possible to improve this model even better. So what does this look like? And I will show you a little bit later. So what you have now in the policy dashboard, you click on a region and you say, well, this is my region. It has a specific level. I want to see what kind of policies there are in similar regions. So you click on the filters. You, for example, say I want to know something about cultural policies, and this pops up. So you have a short summary saying, well, this is the policy about, a longer one, so you can really see, okay, this could be interesting for me. You see the NUTS region, and then you see the web address, and you can use that to go back to the original source, translate it, and then use it, well, as an inspiration for your own region. And that's also what I really want to stress. So this policy dashboard is collecting a lot of data, it's collecting a lot of policies, it's providing policy snapshots, which could be really helpful, we believe, but it's always meant as an inspiration. So it's not about having a policy and implementing it somewhere else without any context, but it's really used and meant as a tool to stimulate discussion, to see what other regions are doing, to connect with other regions, and to be able to improve your own or another region with the help of other regions. And this is basically what the dashboard will look like. As I said, it's meant as an inspiration, and this will be further explained and shown by my colleague Becky Arnold. So thank you very much for this really brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And if you have any follow-up questions to Peter, we encourage you to ask them in the chat, of course, and we will be sharing also the presentation afterwards. It's certainly been very interesting to be in the middle of a project while AI has been developing from the beginning to basically being able to use it in a project, especially where collecting regional policies from the entire European continent would be harder if we didn't have that instrument. So I think when I started this and we looked at the scope of this project, it's been incredibly interesting to go on this kind of web scraping AI journey. So thank you for taking us through that, now explaining that, Peter. Now we're going to look at a live demonstration of the dashboard, so what all these policies have been put into to make it practical and to make it usable for local policymakers. And to do that, we have Becky Arnold. Becky is from the Netherlands Interdisciplinary Demographic Institute and has a PhD in astrophysics from the University of Sheffield. Becky has also worked for the UK Health Security Agency, constructing a model of how different testing strategies mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in vulnerable settings. She is much of the brain behind the structure of the dashboard, making sure the science becomes as accurate and user-friendly as possible. And that's what she's going to show us now. Over to you, Becky. Oh, you're muted, Becky.
Sorry, rookie mistake.
No worries, no worries.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much for that. And yes, I'll be very pleased to demonstrate the dashboard that we've constructed to you all today. So this is the homepage, and you can see over here, we've got a bit of information about what the dashboard is and how it works. And then over here, we've got these three portals. So the first portal is really about your region. So within it, you select what is your region, and we return our policy suggestions based on all the research we have done that we think are applicable to your region. We also return information on your region's development status and your region's development history. Along with that, we also give information on your region's migration and population trends, both in the past, but also we give projections for the future as well. So that's the first portal. The second two portals kind of zoom out. They look at the European scale. So the second portal is about regional development at the European scale. So having learned about your region's development status in portal one, you can then see how that fits into the wider context here. And for portal three, we look at migration and population trends at European scale, again, to help you understand how your region fits into that. And also within this portal, we have, stories and quotes and interviews from migrants themselves to help give a more nuanced perspective that isn't just data. So with that, I will go and sort of demonstrate portal one to you first. And if you click on that, the first thing that you will see is a map. And you need to select your region, which you can do by the drop downs by selecting your country and your region, or you can click on the map and you can zoom in and move around and so on as well and say, this is my region. And if you do that, the first tab is policy solutions. So first up, the very first thing you see is what we think the policies that are applicable to your region are. Now, the way we do that determination is, as we've done our research on regional development and on migration and population trends, we have formed regions into types. So when we've gone out and looked for policies, if we see a policy has been applied in a region with the same type as yours in terms of development and the migration and population trends, we go, okay, this is a similar region to you, therefore we think this policy may be applicable to you, may be around some of the same challenges that you yourself are facing. So after you select your region, you've got the list of policies that we think are applicable to you, and you can sort of scroll through those and pick out any that you think are interesting. So looking at the first one, building small and cheap housing opportunities for young people to stop them out migrating. So keeping young people in a region that's facing depopulation, something really, really relevant to this project. And if you look at a policy idea and you want to know more about it, you can click on it and it will give you a longer description. It will tell you the region that that policy was first implemented in, and it will give you a link to the original document or the original website that we drew that policy from. So when you're going through and judging, is this something I want to try in my region? Is it something I would need to adjust? You can go and you can get all the details on the original there. You'll notice up here, there's also a load of different tags about topics. Now, we do this to help policymakers find what they are looking for quicker, because it may be a policymaker already knows that they're going to do something around climate change or environmental protection or energy. So let's say they know they want to do something kind of in that zone. By selecting those tags, the list of policies that is returned changes. So now only policies that have at least one of those tags will be in the list. So this really helps users to focus down. The next thing, you can also select if you want to filter by origin. So as Peter went over in his presentation, we have AI summarized policies, but we also have policies that we as researchers have gone out and searched for and summarized ourselves. And these are the verified policies. So if you only want to see verified policies, or if you only want to see AI policies, you could select one or the other. There's also another tag we want to add there, which I'm going to come back to at the very end, because I think it's something that's quite exciting and could make this project even more for policymakers. So also we've got scope here. So this is policy and program. So something we noticed when we were doing that process of going out and looking for policies is we found a lot of documents that weren't one individual policies. They were huge, great big packs. So for example, like the Green Action Plan from 2025 to 2035 for a certain region. And okay, it's not a policy, it's like 50 policies, but those are really, really interesting, have so much in them. We wanted to include them as well. So here, if you only have like the time or the budget that you just do one thing and you only want to filter on individual policies, you can do that. But if you're looking for these big documents that have lots of sort of really integrated ideas in them, you can filter by programs as well. So lots of ways to find what you are looking for here. So scrolling to the top, that was policy solutions. But what if I want to know about my region's regional development? So you can click on there and we see, first of all, it tells us a bit about this region. So it's very rural, it's underdeveloped, and it's stagnant. So it's not improving and it's not really declining. But we go further and we break that down. So here you can see our 3 different dimensions of regional development: the economic, the social, and the living environment, as well as the overall score. So you can see where your region's doing well and where it's doing badly. So for example, here, of all these, it scores lowest in economic, but economic's the only area this particular region is improving in. So if you're a policymaker trying to make a decision on where to focus your efforts, that's helpful information to have. We also discuss a bit about this region's strengths and weaknesses in terms of development. And here we also do a national comparison. So for example, this region scores 5 out of 10 on the economics Europe-wide. But if we look at the national comparison, it's in the bottom 9% of regions in the country for economics. So that kind of helps a policymaker, again, making those judgments that even though this region is improving in economics, that might indicate to me I want to put even more energy and resources in that direction. Something I really want to flag as well is that this dashboard was co-created with our Resilient Regions expert group, which was a group of policymakers that very kindly worked with us and gave us feedback at every stage from development and as it was under construction as well, about how to make this as useful for policymakers as possible. And they were able to improve it in lots and lots of ways. And this is an example. This section was something that we as researchers wouldn't have thought to do, but they would know this would be something that would be very valuable to me. So I hope it will be valuable for any of you that use the dashboard. Down here, we've also got development scores over time, again, so you can see what has changed in your region, which again informs your future decisions, and you can find comparable regions. So if you click on that, you have a bit of information up here and you've got this typology. So this region is underdeveloped and on the whole is improving, mostly due to strong economic improvements in this particular case. And down here, we discuss these regions. We discuss, the sort of challenges they're facing. And really interestingly, we've got a map down here of other regions of this type. And you can zoom in, move around, and you can hover over as well to get the regions' names. So if you're trying to find regions that might be facing similar challenges to you, so that you can sort of see what they're doing to exchange knowledge, exchange best practice, this is a really useful tool for that, to enable better collaboration between regions. So if I scroll to the top again, I've done policies, I've done regional development. What about this region in terms of migration and population? So we click on that, and the first thing we have is some information about that. So this region is undergoing population decline. It's experiencing natural decline, so more people are dying than are being born. There is net out migration, so people are tending to leave. It's a very old population and it is aging rapidly. So again, useful information for a policymaker to know. And we discuss the strengths and weaknesses of this region in terms of its demographics here. Here, we've also got a net migration projection for the region. So this is currently negative, so it's currently losing people, but it's expected that will change by around 2030. But you can filter that down further. So let's say of particular interest might be a certain demographic, say 20 to 39-year-olds that are, say, highly educated. And if we select that demographic, we can see the expected net migration is going to decrease over time. And again, as a policymaker, that's a problem. That's skills loss. That's potentially jobs loss. So again, knowing about that, knowing that's coming can help a policymaker react. We scroll down here, and lastly on this page, we've got this population pyramid. So you can see how the population is likely to evolve over time. So if you scroll forward, say, what's the population in my region going to be, say, in 2035? Well, it's going to look like that, even more aging, a problem to be dealt with as early as possible, or reacted to it as early as possible. So a lot is sort of stuffed into kind of portal 1 of the dashboard. I think a lot of really interesting information there. So with that, I will move on to portal 2, which is about regional development at the European scale, which Peter's already sort of demonstrated or given sort of a sneak peek of for you here as well. So you can see this map of Europe color-coded by regional development, and you can zoom in, which is particularly useful if your region is small, as many of them are. But you can also select, show me the landscape of living environment development across Europe. And you can see the picture's quite different. And you can also use this slider down here to scroll back in time. Say, show me what the picture was like in 2014. And you can see, again, a lot of shifts. So again, this helps you understand your regions, how it's doing with regards to the trends Europe-wide, as well as just how it's doing independently. So going back to the home page again and going into portal 3. So this is the migration and population trends at the European level. So who is moving and why? So the very first thing we get is this, I think, pretty, but also a little bit difficult to interpret plot, where it basically shows you the population flows between different countries, who's going where. And you can hover over a particular country. So for example, who's, to and from Germany? What about Belgium? So you can highlight different countries to better understand the kind of structure of those population flows. Down here, you can, select more about what you're actually interested in. So the year, for example, or particular demographics. So let's say you want to know about the movements of 40 to 64-year-olds that are medium educated. Now you'll notice the number of countries drop down there. That's because there's 27 odd countries, and then you've got so many lines going everywhere, the plot becomes, unreadable. So we've got a threshold to stop there being too many lines, but you can change that down here with this slider to include smaller flows and sort of add them back in if that's the information that you are after for your case. I'll now go over here to population projections. So first up, select a country you're particularly interested in. So just from the drop-down menu here, you see the population projection in the future in terms of percentage change. So the population in Australia is likely to increase. And you can select this based on particular demographics you're interested in. So age group, sex, education. So for example, let's say, what do we think will happen to the population of 20 to 39-year-olds? They're going to go down, even though the population as a whole is going to go up because of aging. Down here, we compare what the future of different countries. So we can see which countries are likely to experience the most population increase and the most population decrease. And down here, we've got information about the balance of immigration and emigration, which again, you can filter by particular demographics of interest. And down here, you've got even more information about, the share by different sexes, migration balance, and so on. So again, lots and lots of information crammed in here. Then we've got this tab. So this is the more quantitative, more sort of people-based aspect of research. And I love data. I'm a very, numbers person, but there are things that you can learn just by talking to somebody in a way that would be much, much harder. And if you're a policymaker and you want to attract people to your region, knowing about migrants' experiences and their motivations is really important. But it's really difficult to go out and talk to, 400 different people that have, have experience with migration. So I don't know the exact number because I wasn't doing the interviews, but we have done, essentially that research for you by going out and talking to lots and lots of migrants across Europe, doing these interviews, boiling down the results to get these experiences in one place so that you can access them. So if you look down here, there's a whole bunch of quotes from those interviews. So if you click on one, for example, the Dutch hold higher positions. We just pass by them, see them in the warehouse, but they don't do the same work as we do. Very friendly, really friendly. The Dutch are friendly, very friendly. Honestly, I don't really know any Dutch person, like not even to say hi or good morning, just the ones I pass at work. I don't know any Dutch people. I don't hang out with Dutch people. I don't talk to Dutch people. So even within this really short quote, what we're getting is a very kind of nuanced, detailed perspective, which I think can be really informative. So for example, this person, they get on well with the, in this case, native Dutch population, but there is a lack of integration here. And this person, in their experience, they seem to ascribe that to a kind of segregation in not just the type, but also the level of the work that the, in this case, native population versus the migrant population does. So if you want to tackle, say, integration as a problem, that's an interesting and useful experience to know about. And again, we want to make it easy for policymakers to find what they are looking for. So we've got these tags up here. So for example, say you want to know about the perspective of migrants related to, say, housing. You can filter by that, and you will only get quotes that are tagged housing, or at least one of their tags is housing. So say we click on this one. We invest all our resources in Poland. I think that is a significant benefit for this region or for Poland in general. Everyone is investing in some kind of property or something similar. And of course, when you are building a house, you have to make all sorts of purchases. We do not buy these things in Germany, we buy them in Poland. So the local market benefits from that. And again, you can further filter down by if you want to know the perspective of the particular, say I want the perspective of women, for example, or you want the perspective of particular types of migrants. So people that have moved permanently, people that are seasonal, people that return to their home country in the end. You can filter by that to get those perspectives. Last tab here, obviously, we have done a lot of work on this dashboard. There's always more to be done, always. So this, a little bit more work needs to be done on this one. This is about the landscape of integration. But yeah, more to come on that one for now. So returning back to the home page, there's one more button I want to tell you about, which is kind of the most important button on the dashboard, which I kind of hinted sideways at when I was talking about the policies, because I said we've got these two origins. We've got the AI summarized ones and the verified ones from us as researchers. But we want to add a third one. We want policies from policymakers. So this isn't just researchers talking to policymakers, it's also policymakers talking to policymakers. So there's kind of peer learning. So if you click on this button up here, add your input, what it will do is take you to a Google form where if you have a policy that you've implemented or you've tried to implement or you've seen implemented and you think that's a really cool idea, I think more people should know about this because they might find it useful. You can submit this policy here. So you can say where it was implemented, you can describe the policy, you can say, this is a policy about education and infrastructure, for example. You can add a link to a document about the policy, and we will be looking over these, and we desperately want to include policies from policymakers. So this can be much more of a community hub and allow as much dialogue as possible and be made stronger and stronger, and a great resource, we certainly hope. And we think it already is. So with that, I'm always happy to discuss this. If you've got any questions, if you want to know more, please don't hesitate to contact me. I don't know if Sarah has, or I certainly will put my email in the chat. And with that, I will hand over back to Anne Katrine.
Thank you very much for that, Becky. Very thorough walkthrough that we've also been requested. And I think you really highlight how many features this dashboard has, which is a lot. So we hope that they were understandable. And as Becky said, it's being updated still. So we are soft launching it now and opening it up to these inputs. We would love as many as possible. But I'm going to throw it over to Sarah. She has a little question for you in the audience?
Thank you so much, Anne Katrine, and thank you everyone for the high engagement in the chat. The questions keep coming in, and Becky will stick around in the chat to answer to the ones she can that are more technical, and I will go ahead actually and launch a poll quickly because we're really interested to know which one of these three functions that Becky presented that you are most interested in. So you should see this poll on your screens right now. And that's unfortunately everything we'll have time for. We won't have time to pick up more questions right now because we have a great panel waiting. So I will bounce that one over to Anne Katrine again to introduce our guest speakers and panelists.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, ideally, we would have time for all the questions, but rest assured, Becky is in the chat and she will be answering those that she can answer as well. And otherwise, our emails will be sent out afterwards. So now we've seen how the dashboard is built and why. And we've also seen what the functions are. Now we want to find out if it matches how regions actually tackle decline or retention and learn more about that from specialists who will share their experiences from working on the front lines of population change. And we are already living in an age of competing for people and skills in this rural decline era. And when you collect so many regional attraction policies, you find quite a few interesting ones. We do read all these policies ourselves. And one interesting one that I found was from Hammerfest in Norway, where they give a free trial home for families for a whole year. That is paid rent for a whole year to move to quite a rural region in Norway. And if the family so chooses, they can buy that house afterwards if they choose to keep staying and living in Hammerfest. So with that, I want to also ask the panelists if they've heard of an interesting attraction policy, whether in their own region or they've seen it maybe on a billboard in a big city for rural regions trying to get people out of the big city. I'm not sure. But I will take you through these panelists one by one, and we will start with Tatiana Petrova. She is a project specialist from Hanze University of Applied Sciences in Finland. Tatiana works for the Skilled Labor to the Kainuu Region project, which aims to improve employment opportunities for international talent in the Kainuu region and strengthen stakeholder collaboration to ensure access to a skilled workforce. So, Tatiana, do you have any interesting policies you've seen?
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. We have a very, from my point of view, interesting example in our region. So we have a small town called Puolanka, and they use pessimism for marketing. So they have a house of pessimism, they have cafeteria, they have small theater. And they even have a sign on a road. Then you're trying to enter the small town, written that, "Are you sure? Because next will be Puolanka." And they also used to say that pessimism is the only natural resource that they have.
That is amazing. I love, which they wouldn't say, of course, but this is definitely leaning into when you're already declining. Why not lean into it? I know Puolanka and their example, and that's a brilliant example. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Then I will ask Andrea Frankanova. She is the Regional Labor Mobility Coordinator of IOM Europe and Central Asia. With over 10 years of experience with the International Organization of Migration, she currently serves as Labor Mobility Coordinator at the IOM Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia, supporting IOM country offices in the field of labor mobility and social inclusion. Andrea, do you have any interesting policies or strategies you've heard?
Thanks, Anne Katrine. Actually, I have one, and I have seen it at the airport when I was visiting Lithuania. And I found it quite interesting. It was targeting returnees, so Lithuanians who are, working abroad. And basically, it was a billboard which was there during the holiday seasons in December and was very emotional and providing information why they should return to Lithuania, what Lithuania can offer now. And I find it very interesting also the timing. So.
Yeah, definitely taking advantage of the season of feeling for sure. Super interesting. That was in Lithuania at their main airport. Very interesting. That I haven't seen. Would want to look that up myself. Thank you very much, Andrea. Then I will move on to Christian Broen. Christian is an urban planner at Guldborgsund Municipality in Denmark and project lead with a particular interest in urban and rural renewal strategies and fair distribution of welfare. He is also co-leading the municipality's Building Improvement Committee, which distributes support to property owners who want to renovate their private or rental homes. Welcome to you, Christian. Will you tell us of a strategy that you've heard of?
I just got so inspired by the Finnish example. I thought it was great, really, about this negativity approach. I could say from a Danish context, we have a bit like the opposite. Like what I've learned is that every Danish municipality must have an attraction policy, and we all want to attract the same people, being usually well-educated family people coming from the capital, Copenhagen. And what I know for a fact is that in the municipality I represent, Guldborgsund Municipality, I think it's less than 1% of the people actually moving here who are well-educated families from Copenhagen. So, yeah, a bit of pessimism could or like a more realistic approach would be very much in wanting here.
Maybe we need to connect these two regions, Christian, because I know there is quite a lot of attraction policies to be collected in Denmark, but that doesn't mean they necessarily work, of course. But thank you for that example. Then we will go to Monica Tudor, who is the president of the Romanian Association of Rural and Agri-Food Economy. She's also head of the Rural Development Department at the Institute of Agricultural Economics at the Romanian Academy and ICEADR Bucharest. Monica has a background in sociology and economy and more than 20 years of experience in research and consultancy in supporting strategic thinking in territorial rural development. So you know quite a lot about this, Monica, and you also say you have a lot of hats. With one of these hats, do you have an example that you've seen that kind of struck you as super interesting?
Thank you, Anne Katrine, for introduction. Yeah, indeed, I have multiple hats, and that helped me to have a broader vision about rural development. My experience is mostly in Romania, and I have an example. It's one initiative that it was started in the rural area. It's called One Village, 1 Megawatt, and they there succeeded to implement a local strategy to collect branches and other material that are not used and transform those things in energy for heating the public administration, school, and other public buildings in the area. And after that, to extend to the community. And through that, they keep the cost of living and administration lower. And this was something that involved all the community in developing this strategy, because those communities need to agree with the implementation of the idea. And in a way, after they starting with this strategy in one village, and it was extended. Now they have, I think, more than 50 villages that they spread the idea. So since it's something that it was a kind of smart specialization, and I think that this is one of the ideas that can be taken from Romania to the other countries.
Super interesting. To kind of create, one mega hub with all of these different villages of skills, it sounds like, and creating this local ownership. I think that's really one of the big challenges as well when spreading multi-regional strategies. But super interesting, Monica. We'll come back to that one for sure. Then we have Peter. Peter, I've already introduced you, but you also have quite a lot of experience yourself with, regional policies and development in the Netherlands, or I know at least you have some background also from your past with that. And I wanted to ask what kind of, you're kind of the expert here. You've seen all of these hundreds of policies have gone through you. Is there any one of them that you found particularly interesting or unique?
I think there are a lot of really nice ones, but I think for now, I really had to think about, and it's not so much of a policy, but it's more like a campaign the region I'm living in is carrying out basically all the time, because the part I'm living in the Netherlands feels really left out. We're one of the poorest regions in the Netherlands. So what they intend to do, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, they wanted to have a huge factory here, the factory from Elon Musk, the Tesla factory. So what they did, I think they bought a billboard from, I don't know, 100 meters high and 20 meters wide, and they put it in front of his office somewhere in the States saying, hey, Elon, you should go to the Netherlands, you should go to Groningen, that's the best part of the world, something like that. Somehow it didn't work. I don't know why. And the other thing is that they also launched a campaign to get to, basically what Christine also said, to attract people. So we have a big university here. A lot of people are studying here. But then they move to the western part of the Netherlands where you have better paid jobs, etc. And they also launched a campaign last year saying, hey, people, you still remember us. We're in a really nice city. Please get back to us. So, and I think that's of course is meant as funny. I mean, but it also has a serious, I don't know, underlying mechanism, of course, as showing, hey, people, we're still here. Don't forget about us. You can have decent jobs and houses, etc. in our place. So those I think are really funny. And during the collection, I've seen a lot of really interesting things that regions develop. And what also struck me, I think it was something about digital nomads, which I find also interesting, because a lot of people try to attract them, but often it goes with, I don't know, tax reductions or not paying taxes. Then I always feel like, okay, then you have the people there. Okay, they spend a little bit in shops and they live there in their houses, but does it actually contribute to society? So I'm not really sure about that. So I think it's an interesting idea to focus on digital nomads, but I'm a little bit wondering if it really, if it pays off, to be fair.
That's a super interesting point. If they don't stay, then does it pay off to have
do
them?
they really contribute if you're sitting with your laptop, drinking your lattes? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Or are they more like long-term tourists in a smaller region? Yeah. That's a super interesting point. And what an interesting gamble that Groningen made with this billboard in front of Elon Musk's office. Imagine if that was a sustainable strategy. I think we'd have some interesting conclusions from the project. But yeah, that was definitely an interesting one for sure. Thank you very much for your interesting policies here, and we also encourage the audience, if you've heard of any interesting or inspiring or even weird policies, please share them in the chat. We'd love to see those as well. I'm going to go back to Christian to kind of start off the questions here. And please also keep your questions coming in the chat. Sarah will monitor and we'll get them in, but I'll kick it off. Christian, you mentioned as well yourself that it's less than 1% of these well-educated families that move to Gullbosson. And Peter mentioned these digital nomads. I think most municipalities will agree they're not the ones they mostly want to go after. It is these well-educated families because they tend to stay. They have kids and they want to establish themselves. But you also mentioned when you and I had a chat, Christian, that the average income is much below the national level. The general health conditions of the population is below the national level, and the average education level is below the national level. And also that your region is closing schools as well, and struggles not just to attract, but to retain people, to keep the people that are already there, to making them stay. So I want to ask what the challenges are in keeping people, and specifically in terms of priority. Is it funding? Is it political will? What's the first priority when planning for making people stay?
Oh, that's a good question, I think, and pretty tough question to answer, really. But what I see as in our municipality is really a tremendous effort and an enormous political will at trying to attract new companies, new job opportunities, to strengthen tourism, and so on. But yeah, you got to acknowledge that is a really good priority, but you need this in order to build a strong economy. Problem is, on the other hand, that at least in a Danish or a Nordic context, I'm not sure how it is in the rest of Europe, that Nordic municipalities are quite big service providers. So we provide free school and healthcare and bus lines, all kinds of services. And there's no really talk about these services. Problem is, in my view at least, that we try to maintain the same service as we have had for years. And in this way, we we scrape butter over too much bread. Like we try to maintain, but we can't do it because our budgets are really strained. An example is, for instance, as you mentioned, Anne Katrine, we are closing schools. There's a particular village school in one place. If you Google it, you can find numerous headlines of every year when there's budget cuts, this school gets mentioned. Should it be closed or not? And this provides a lot of insecurity locally. And I don't think that well-educated families from Copenhagen are going to move to this particular place because they don't know if there's a school there. And in some respect, and as a strategic planner, we do have the methods in order to try to plan for better qualities in some places, like strengthen some places, maybe close the school down and move the pupils and the teachers to another school where we can maintain a school of good quality, and also maybe say some places we cannot maintain quality, and therefore we should close down. But this is a really hard topic to discuss politically. We would much rather discuss how to attract new companies and create job possibilities. But it is sort of the really uncomfortable truth, but also where we could really develop or get some ideas from your dashboard, I think, because we can compare ourselves and get some good quality data.
That sounds good, Christian. And I think, you bring up a super important point with this realism that the prioritization sometimes has to happen regardless. And then that means inevitably cutting down on some areas to prioritize others. And I want to kind of go over to you, Monica, on that question and ask what we can learn from Romanian rural regions, because you said as well in our talk when we prepared that, I think you said 12% of Romanians are also migrating out. That's a huge number. And in terms of what we can learn from, you already mentioned a good example in the beginning here, but how are the Romanian municipalities prioritizing here, and what's their kind of strategy in terms of facing decline? And is there any impact you see from working with agri-food in particular?
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I checked after our discussion the figures, and I find out that the percentage of Romanians that now living abroad have a residency abroad is 3.1 million. So based on those figures, that means that we have 14% of the population that actually live abroad, and is both in rural and urban area. Is not just in the rural area that is affected by this migration. Indeed, and as Christian said in his intervention, Romania faced the same challenges with providing services and quality of life in the rural area, and this decline of the population and aging of the population in the rural area, it's a real phenomenon that affecting mostly the remote area, rural area. But it's something that is a concentration of the population around towns. It's the population internally migrating now close to those towns. So in a way, watch the policy do it, and because we faced this, and it's very difficult to counteract. As Christian said before, we need to be realistic in this approach. And in the same time, the Romanian government decided to make, let's say, a prioritization of the rural communities based on their chances, viability, they call it, to attract people, and they starting to finance more infrastructure and developing school and concentrating the people in those villages that are viable, more close to the urban area, and that can provide services at the level touch to keep the people there. In a way, that was a strategy, and indeed now have a lot of small villages that are no populated. We have there a couple of people that live in an entire village, and if you go there, you'll see that it's huge abandonment of the houses in those remote rural area in Romania, and it's not only in the mountain, because we discussed it with the Austrians. They said us, okay, you know, we have this type of experience in the mountain area because they offering a harsh living condition, but it's in Romania, it's including in the plain area that don't have this type of, let's say, chances to be viable. And what is the viability? It's one of the engine of the viability. It is related to the food system. And here we're discussing about short food supply chain. And this is one of the strategies that it was implemented by the local communities and farmers, small farmers that succeeded to provide food to their neighbors in the village, but also to the towns that are nearby. So this shortening the distance of transport and providing fresh vegetables, fruits, and meat, eggs, it's something that is appreciated in Romania, because Romanians have the perspective that those fresh vegetables are more tasty, that those that coming from long distances are imported from the other countries. So we build it on this type of, let's say, assumption. And it was during the pandemic, the importance of those short supply chain in the food was even more developed, and his importance, it was understood by the urban population, and now they supported this type of movement even more, because they trust in those farmers. They can visit the farm, they have somehow can have established a close connection with the farmer, and they receive baskets with fruit and vegetables weekly. So it's win-win situation. So that's one of the strategies that is working in Romania. But you know, it's about the distance from your clients, and that this distance needs to be short, not so long.
Yeah. Super interesting, Monica. So basically, the short supply chains, lower distance of transport, and most importantly, what I'm hearing is trust. You know, because one thing we do see in our research is, especially from young families, they're looking for sustainable places. That's one of their highlighted attractiveness themes, is sustainability. It's close-knit communities. But here's a very concrete example of that, is actually looking at very close farm-to-table kind of community. And the side effect of that is obviously sustainability as well. That's, you know, that's a win-win for both country and regions. Yeah.
Indeed, and it's an answer including for Peter from digital nomads. Yeah, indeed, those digital nomads need to eat something, and this is something that can help them also. So they are useful for the community itself and his development, sustainable development also. Thank you.
If nothing else, they bring in the wallets to buy all of the support this supply chain as well.
And indirectly contributed to the local municipality income. You know, the farmer will pay something as a tax to the local municipality, even if those nomads don't pay too much. There is something.
True. But that does remain a concern point, the tax, the kind of tax benefits just for the nomads. But speaking on that, I want to pass it over to Andrea, because Andrea, I want to talk a little bit more about migration and integration, because one thing is of course getting the population to stay, and now we talked about you know, the short supply chains, and maybe some kind of labor market sector that can explain a little bit of that attraction as well. But as an expert organization on international migration, you have a broad overview of migration patterns, and you also know kind of what it takes or how to navigate differences in migration motivations to kind of match migrants to local and regional needs. So when you do see migrants moving back and forth, how do you connect them to the local and regional needs? So now Monica was talking about what's needed to sustain you know, livable and communities where you also feel you belong. How do you get that to match the migration patterns when you're doing your advising? I hope the question makes sense. It was a bit messy.
Yes, yes, no problem, Anne Katrine. Yeah, well, actually, we need to also recognize what you mentioned, that the motivations of migrants might be different. They might move because of protection, because of work, economic situation, because of family reasons. And of course, when we have on the other level, the local communities or the regions, which might, for example, have shortage occupations, specific infrastructure or, social cohesion challenges. So sometimes, when you have migrants try to attract, this doesn't match. And I think to think about it from the beginning is to have a whole society approach and whole of the government approach. So basically, if you try to work on attraction policy, and now I'm talking mainly about international migrants, meaning non-EU migrants, it's important to have all of the relevant stakeholders on board, including diaspora organizations and migrants themselves, which can provide relevant insights on how to, for example, frame this attraction, this attraction, what to offer, what services are relevant, and what are also the motivations of international talents to move to the concrete regions. And I would like to maybe flag one example, which was also surprising for me when I was working with IOM Slovakia on the labor mobility scheme for Slovakia, where we had a survey of surveyed between migrant workers who come to Slovakia or work in Slovakia in a certain time, and asked them, so why did you select and choose Slovakia as a country of destination? Because it's not like top listed as a country of destination when we look in EU or beyond. And what they mentioned were attributes we were not really thinking about. It was like, yeah, you are a European member states. It's a safe location for us to come. There was also kind of like this geographical it's not far away to come and to come back and visit our family when we are right there, for example, for work. So there were some attributes which we're not thinking about. So that's why I think this whole society approach and having also this data and insights from the population you're trying to target is very relevant. Well, with regards to facilitation of integration, of course, you need to think about services, and it was well mentioned that when we think about international talents, we shouldn't be thinking about individuals moving, but also about families and what are the relevant services for those families to move towards concrete destinations, or what offer can, for example, municipalities provide, but also the communities. And I think also getting back to the motivations, what I wanted to also flag is that sometimes we really presume that the motivations of migrants are different than they are. And what is important to know that when we talk about international talent, they specifically look at attitudes towards migrants, at the narratives, which are, for example, at the local level or at the national level, because this is one of them, I think I would say, the most attributes they see when they decide on countries to move. So, yeah.
Super interesting. Sorry, I'm taking a lot of notes. This is very interesting because you're mentioning a lot of things here that that is also something that can sometimes, I think, forego research, because if it's not something that's looked for in particular, this kind of attributes we forget. You mentioned, a safe location, EU member states, close to home, being, to your home country. That can be things that we think is taken for granted or something that's not even within the periphery. But yeah, super interesting. And then you also mentioned as well the community aspect that I think also Monica was mentioning before, how important it is to also look for attributes of trust and to look for a place where belonging is already prioritized, and the attitudes towards migrants, as you said as well. And so with that, I want to pass a little bit on to Tatiana, because Tatiana, you focus on young professionals, especially, and you're also a young migrant yourself, having moved to Finland and working on this. So having kind of both understandings within you, and I think I want to ask you if, in terms of young people, whether that be nomads or whether that be families, but people early in their career, usually the stereotype is that what they're mainly looking for is just jobs and relatively cheap housing, but economic opportunity, basically. But what I want to ask you is, do you also find that some of these conclusions we see here count for young people, the belonging aspect, and really some of these attributes we forget? What can you tell us about young people's motivations? And especially if they match, so young people that are leaving Kainu right after their degrees, because they don't find a job necessarily. If there were jobs there, what would they need to stay in Kainu?
Thank you very much for the question. And before I will answer question, I need to follow up what Christian said, because several months back there was a title in our local newspaper regarding schools that all the children being born in my hometown, Kajani, they will fit in one single secondary school. Then they reach the age, and that was the ringing the bell for all of us, because the region or the town that I'm living, called Kajani, is around 35,000 people, and if we think about numbers, it's a huge decline. Okay, but then coming back to the question, actually, I want to also comment a bit on Andrea. What did you say? Because if we look to our numbers of international students, so I work for the Hanze University of Applied Sciences, and we have around 3,000 students, the whole number, and around 600 is international students, and they are coming mostly from countries as Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and we also see this clear trend on older population in their countries, and they are looking for new opportunities, and that's why they're coming to you. But coming back to the question, sorry for the long introduction. As an immigrant myself, I came to Finland around 20 years back, and I believe that integration is always the double process. We need immigrant who with a really high motivation, who want to learn language and become a part of society. But on the other hand, we need this local community who are willing to accept. Of course, we see the job is the most important, probably the factor, the income, because without income they cannot stay. But still, we have a lot of people coming with families, with spouses, with kids, and there are some statistics about spouses. If they will not feel good or integrated on the society, and most probably they will move to another region, to another country. But I also want to explain a bit on a study we conducted. So we made a study on a regional level. What are the main challenges of our international students to find employment? And from this study, I would highlight 3 points. The first is mismatch between business or structure of the businesses and educational programs. So my region is about Belgium size. It's quite big, and the whole population is less than 70,000 people. So density of population is around 3.5 for the square kilometer. And the structure of our businesses or industries is that we have around 90% of micro enterprises and small enterprises. And they're literally 1 to 3 people working for the business. And sometimes they don't have resources, sometimes they don't have time to look to international recruitment. So this, if I come back to the three points, what I wanted to highlight is first is mismatch between educational system and businesses. The second is Finnish language skills of international talents, and unfortunately, many people in our region, they still expect international people to come and after 1 year to be very fluent in Finnish. The languages is very difficult. And the third, my point, is preparedness of the businesses to accept international talents. So they're not that willing sometimes to speak English, and they're not that ready to open their doors. Thank you. I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. And I think you bring up the very important point that integration goes both ways, and that it can be an equal struggle for regions sometimes to integrate their own local populations to new, highly needed migrants that come in, because that is often the tricky balance, is that, you know, the local population need the skill and they need the people as well, but often sometimes forget that integration is a two-way street. So I think you bring up some very interesting points here as well with the language skills, and very interesting to hear about the Kainuu as such a huge region with such low density as well. That's a very big challenge. I think I'm getting a question from Sarah right now from the audience, so we're gonna let her.
We do have a question from Nanna. I don't know if it's more. So Nana, please clarify in the chat if I'm interpreting it wrong, but I think it is a little bit about the tool itself, because it's about how culture plays in and whether culture has a place in this tool, because culture is very important for where people move. That's a statement in the comment, but maybe that's something that could be interesting also to discuss, and you've already touched on it, more of these social elements of regional development too.
I think it's a great question to ask, actually, Peter, in terms of research, when we look at these traditional and sometimes non-traditional factors that go into to what policies work and strategies and things like that. How do we deal with the sometimes harder to measure factors like culture in terms of integration and in terms of the sense of belonging that we often talk about as necessary, but is very hard to measure and kind of pin down?
Yeah, I think it is possible, and I had a look at the indicators again, and it's not there as an indicator, but what we do is collecting all the policies, and culture is really an essential element in that as well. From my perspective, I know in the Netherlands we also look at facilities. So we look, for example, if there are theaters, operas, musea, etc., participation of people in amateur art, etc. So it is possible to measure it a little bit, but I totally agree with Nana that it is really essential, and that people people are moving to cities where there is enough to do, but it's for a specific group of people, not for every people, because I was also touched by what Tatjana was saying about that integration and how it really works out in different regions, language issues. I think what I really learned from this project, and also from all the quotes we gathered and we had from working with migrants, is that there isn't one group to focus on. There are really specific people with their own motivations. Some people just want to move to a country, work there for 10 years, then move back. They don't want to integrate it. The thing Becky just said, well, I like Dutch people, but I've never spoken to Dutch people. So it's so multifaceted to come up with a specific policy to attract people, because there isn't a group of people. And I was also struck to bring a little bit together about what Christian said with it's people don't want to talk about losing facilities. They don't want to talk about degrowth. They don't want to talk about regions going down on what kind of level. But I think we should, because the picture I showed in the beginning is showing that there will be less people in the next 60 years or so. And the only thing around it is to come up with new innovative ideas, or I don't know, coming up with new centers, clustering things together, or ask people. Maybe you cannot force them to move, but you should think about it. And the way we are doing it now is and that what makes it also really difficult in municipalities, for example. People are following their own path. They want to attract the same people from Copenhagen, the same group. Everybody wants to attract them, and it's simply not that many people there. So we need some kind of steering committee, and you don't want to force people, but I think we should really move outwards a little bit and shape the way we envision the future together, and not leave it to local policymakers, because from their perspective it makes sense to attract people and to focus on their own region. But I think we should, I don't know, somehow do it on a more regional scale. But like I said, that's really difficult, because it's the political dimension Christian was just talking about. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. You started with concrete questions.
These are...
come to
No, thank you very much, Peter.
aspect.
These are great points, and I also didn't give you an easy question. I think when it comes to culture and the broader perspective of the urban versus rural perspective, that's much harder, because that's the question of competition versus cooperation. But I do want to take a little bit into that question, or move on with that question onto Christian again, and ask because you mentioned in the beginning as well, this the struggle with between regions, right? Because you also said that Gullborgsund also is not the only region struggling, and there may be neighbor regions struggling with the exact same thing. So I want to ask you if there is this kind of competition or cooperation across regions. Is there a national network where you can kind of decide there are different skills for different regions, or kind of figure out a way to prioritize at a higher level what each region should focus on, so that they're not all focused on the same attraction policies? Like you said, in Denmark, every single region has these attraction policies. Is there such a network? And if not, should there be?
I don't think such a network exists, although I think it would be a fair, reasonable idea. To me, it seems like every municipalities in Denmark is sort of fairly strong. We recently had a merge of municipalities into less than 100 municipalities in this country, and they're all fairly strong, fairly skilled, fairly well equipped in order to make attraction policies and carry them out. So there's so much, really a lot of competition between municipalities about the same citizens, really.
Yeah. So do you think that kind of network would make sense to kind of plan at a higher level, or to kind of reach across as one region to another and say, hey, this is our priority here, and this is what we could focus on? Or, I mean, I'm sure this maybe has been tried, but I wanted to ask that follow-up.
Oh yes, I as a planner, I think it would be a great idea, but the thing I know about Danish politics, I think it would never work. No one would really want that.
Okay.
It's all about strengthening municipalities, and the municipalities want to decide themselves.
Yeah.
Really strong mayors in this country.
And if I can add to that, what I also find really interesting is that, for example, in our region, well, they always talk about, okay, let's get more jobs, they get more this, more. So and then they have some kind of research showing and saying, well, if you really want to attract more people working there, you should have, like, I don't know, a big amusement park like Disneyland Paris or something like that. But once you propose that, then people are like, no, we don't want that. We still want to have our space. We still want to have our green. So it's really difficult that people want to have the benefits, reap the benefits, but they don't want to have the negatives. And that's also, and especially in a small country like the Netherlands, same as in Denmark, with not a lot of areas to put a lot of things into planning wise, it's really difficult to do this in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we're not going to crack that nut today necessarily, but I will say I want to give one final question, and it's a bit unfair, but it's to Andrea in terms of you're working, in advising on quite a high regional level. So when you're looking at the matching of migrants and regional needs and local needs, what do you see as the main kind of cooperation factor? Do you see cooperation factors where regions come together and there's kind of a network of higher exchange in terms of which regions for which skills and which kind of migrants? Or is that a bit of a simplistic way to look at it?
Well, I can't really say now any example about like a regional cooperation with regards to, for example, talent attraction, etc. But I think it makes sense because when you have policies and they only, for example, target rural municipalities in isolation, then without considering regional networks, for example, which affects, for example, transport, housing, services, you can really kind of like coordinate, then it's not going to be that like a big win to make this rural destination more attractive if you don't look at it as a region. Like so kind of like start with coordinating and involve all stakeholders, as I mentioned, like this whole of society approach involving not only rural municipalities, but also, municipalities around region and all of the stakeholders. And it was also quite interesting to hear also from Tatiana when she mentioned the private sector involvement and the companies ready, to also absorb the talents coming. So I think this coordination is very relevant, and including all the stakeholders to achieve like better results, or provide even better services, to share the burdens, the challenges, but also to share the solutions. Yeah, so I think it really makes sense. But sorry, I can't really now come with some good examples where we have seen this. It's difficult, as it was also mentioned by previous panelists. Tatiana, I see.
Yes, Tatiana. Very briefly, we have not that long time left, but yes, please. You're muted. Tatiana, you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that I also see on a regional level that you have to have the common interest for all stakeholders first in order to start cooperate with other regions. We have to start at home first. Yeah. And another quick point that I know in some of our strategies we have now that we have to cooperate between regions, but so far it's only on a strategy. We will look how it will go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just if you allow me, just jumping.
You can have the final
shortly,
point, Monica.
Yeah,
yes.
Actually, in the rural area, there are functional in all the European Union local action groups that are structured that actually need to work, as Andrea mentioned, to connect the area and the rural and small towns that are around and build together strategy. And it's not only municipality that are involving, including private sector, everyone so are on the table. So for those strategies, 7 years, all those local action groups need to develop some strategies, and now they have access to multi-funding. So not only rural development funds, also other funds. So this is a structure that can build such a thing, let's say cooperation and exchange of idea and transport and everything. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Monica. And I think what I'm hearing towards the end here is that it is quite fascinating, and that's something that's a very interesting part of being in this project, how differently and similar regions and municipality tackle attraction and quality of life policies. Because as we've heard now, it's vastly different whether it's based on a national strategy, a very local political prioritization strategy like Christian mentioned, or a local action group like Monica mentioned, or if it's based on EU level strategies that then can receive funding, or if it's right down to the business stakeholders. And I think something that I get a sense that we're missing is these kind of learning networks where regions throughout all of Europe can come together and discover what's happening and these kind of innovative strategies that are happening that you wouldn't have heard of otherwise. Christian, you mentioned there's 100 municipalities in Denmark that are doing more or less as well as each other in attraction strategies. But what would the potential be for learning from regions in the south of Spain, for example, or the west of France, who are going through similar issues as well? And I think that's something this project has the ambition to try to do, to bring learning together from across Europe. And that's something that we try to contain within the dashboard, within these policies. And it's also something that we have in the network behind the dashboard that has helped co-create this dashboard. Several of you here in the panel are members of the Regional Resilience Expert Group, because even though the dashboard can provide a great overview, the experts aren't us. They are you in the regions who are dealing with this on a daily basis and can learn from each other in this process. So that's why we really hope that with this launch of the dashboard, that you as a community, policymakers in the audience will use it and contribute your best practices, your policies into it so that it can be shared across European regions. And we also hope that this network stays alive afterwards, that we can continue to share and learn from each other. So yeah, I want to thank you, but I want to quickly pass it over to Sarah for a quick promotion of the dashboard.
Thank you so much, Anne Katrine, and thank you to the panelists. This was so interesting to listen to, and we have some great reflections and ideas in the chat. In the interest of time, we will have to move on, but thank you so much. And you are all invited to our final conference, which will take place at the European Committee of the Regions in Brussels, 10th of March. There will be a streaming as well of the event, but there will not be an interactive online event. So please, if you want to be part of the solutions at the local level, up to the EU level even, this is where the conversations will continue in March. So thank you so much. And also, please provide us your feedback on this tool. It's not quite final yet. So there's still plenty of room to tweak it to a degree, of course. But thank you so much. Now I think we're ready. So Anne Katrine, back to you.
Yes, we will send you the link to the dashboard after this event in the post email, and also you will hear more from us about this network if you subscribe to our newsletter, and you might get an email here and there as well for future events. Yeah, thank you very much to Sarah. Thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you to the audience. Goodbye for now, and see you in the future.